too hard, right?
Mamish.
But I don't want to speak for you. Okay, so I want to specifically thank the Rav for coming on every Yontif. I'm sure he has. If my experience is any experience, the big element hasn't sold their chametz yet. They wait till the last second, and they're showing up here tonight, and they're probably banging down at his door, and his wife is probably hacking him and trying to do all sorts of 100 different things, and maybe he locked himself in the studies. You can see as a refuge, as I do.
It could be I have to. It could be I have to thank you all.
Okay, whatever. But we thank you for coming on. For us, it's it's in the morning still. We can get nervous later, but for you, it's night, and we have a special yashar koyach to you. I want to thank you for taking us through a long winter's man with where we learned so much of so many different sugyas from you and your presence on a weekly basis. As we said to you when we were in Yerushalayim, was to us priceless. There's no way for us to thank you other than to learn your Torah. That's the best way to thank you. So
Right.
Today we can do it by listening to the videotape, Nachamal and Chazring it, etc., etc. Okay, Rabbi Say, we will see the Rav again after today. And the first week of this month, we'll learn Shi and Chazara to let the Rav know. Now we'll talk about it again before then. Okay, let's take it away. I want the Rav to know that we have Kamat, 90% of the regular Eilim is on today, Erev Yontif. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Okay.
As Hashem, we have a big agenda here at Bayside. I'm chayshish that we have so much to do over here that by the end of this year, I'll forget to give you my hakaras hatov for being zeichet to learn together these sugyas and to all the sugyas that we learned over the course of the last 2 years, which bemis, this was the tkufa that we started it. So I want to just thank you all. Thank Hashem Yisbarach, of course, for the schus that we had to be together, this gewaldige chabura. And Baruch Hashem, der chabura geht lebendig heimt. We're going live, Bez Hashem, and Bez Hashem weiter, Shia, Chazara, Tmona. I think the hikr is the Chazara. Evish helfen Taka, that Alavai, this chabura will meet after Yontif in Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh. Bez Hashem.
Amen.
Now, Lamaisa, what I thought to do tonight or today or wherever we're holding in the world is I thought that there's a chelik of the Haggadah, a chelik of the Seder, which is somewhat of a shlah mazel. It's somewhat of it doesn't have as much mazel. The Arba Bonim, they get a lot of airtime. The Chacham, the Rasha, the Eini Yadei Elishal, and Dayenu gets a lot of air. The Makkahs get a lot of airtime. The Ganze Maggid and Azayt of Zaindaka, the Mitzvah Deraisa, Yitzias Mitzrayim, and all the different Torahs that are said. I think there's more Torahs that are said about Kiddush before you get to Urchatz than anything that we're going to talk about tonight. And this chelik of the Haggadah, which is from the Shulchan Aruch onward, it's a big chaval. It's the purpose and the whole tachlis. We've come to that moment where now we've left Mitzrayim. We've come to that point in time where not only have we left Mitzrayim, but we have the Argeshim of Emunah, the Argeshim of Bitachin. We've started already the Hallel v'Hoidot Hashem Yisparach, and now we have the second Seder, as you see in the corner of my screen. We have the second Seder, the second part of the Seder. The second chelik of the Seder, which is the Shulchan Aruch and the benching and all the different anhagis, all the way till Nirtza and Baruch, etc. So let's see if we have time. Even the Leil Shimur Malain we'll talk about Bez Hashem, something which is mefurish in the Torah that we have a shimur. We'll be protected tonight, Bez Hashem. A tremendous night. So let's try to focus on that chelik of the Haggadah, on that chelik of the Seder Al Kol Panim, and trying to put together. There's a lot here. I gave the Olam the Marmakoimis on the Avnei Nezer on the Tanai because that I suppose is the most sigidik chelik of the Seder. But I'll start Bez Hashem from the Shulchan Aruch. Now in the Mariel, obviously, there's a tremendous amount here, and whatever our yad is maspik Bez Hashem. In the Mariel. The cups are all Pesach. The Mariel brings down already the minig, which I think most of us have. But the point I want to show the oilam is that everything state shine and everything has a seder to it, and everything there's this. It's a reicha Torah by side, a reicha night, we have reicha minhagim, and everything we do. Sometimes we think, we just do it. We don't realize this is tilei tilim of halachas and Torah, which was said about everything that we do. And the Mariel brings down that's the minig that we eat the beitza. we ate the egg. On Leil Seder, we start the Shulchan Aruch. I'm already after the matzah. I'm already after the maror. We're after the koyrech. And now the Zayda in the shtib, or the father in the house, he claps ice, Shulchan Aruch. And now we start the first minute, I think that most of us have, is that we eat the egg. We eat an egg. And he brings down the mariel. Belel Pesach, you oichlin beitzim terem kol davar. It's the first thing that we do is the egg. And I think most of us have that minute. We take the egg, we dip it in the salt, the dalzwasser. And he brings down, what's the reason why the mariel? He brings down, because the targum of beitza is beya. Boy Rachmana Alanu Parkinan. We're betting guys to Heilig Bashefa. We're begging to be Boy Nishalaylam. Now that we've come through the Yitzias Mitzrayim, Vayminu Bashem B'Moshe Avda, we've got all the way to the start of a Halal Veidah, and we've already done the only mitzvahs Achila Daraisa, says the Chassam Sofer in the Tshuva of the year, the mitzvah of matzah, and we eat the maror, understanding that even when it's bitter, it's toiv. When the Heilig Bashefa fears the Velta, we're all the way. We can put the matzah and the maror together. So now we say, Rebbeinu Shalom, Boy Rachmana, we bet ois to Heilig Bashefa, and we ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to take us out of our Mitzarim and to take us out to the tachlis of the tachlis HaGeula, take us out of the final Geula. Now that we're at that point, that's what we're doing when we're eating the egg, and this is brought by the Heilig Ramah. The Ramah brings down, though, a different reason. The Ramah brings down that the reason why we eat the egg is a simin lavelis. I think that's the more famous reason known. It's also Velas, and everyone knows that the night of Tisha B'Av is the same night, the night of the Seder, and there's a very big message in that. However, a minute ago, we just had Koyrech, which is Zeicher Lemikdash Kehilel. That's one of the very difficult sugyas anybody learns Pesachim, the sugya of the Zeicher Lemikdash Kehilel, and you look good in the Paiskim, it sounds like it's just a Zeicher Be'alma, like a Dalet al Dalet, like the Amal Amma, to remember the Beis HaMikdash and remember how they ate in the Beis HaMikdash. So what we're doing is we're having an egg, which reminds us it's Avelis, because we don't have a Beis HaMikdash. And that Avelis is symbolic in an egg, which is round, like we all know, it's right after the Koyrach, we make another Zeicher, a Zeicher Lemikdash, excuse me, and we are asking the Rebbeinu Shalom again to take us out, and that we should be able to have the Geula in its proper form, in a Beis HaMikdash with the Korban Pesach in the proper oifen. The Moraxia, the Heilig Yavitz, he brings down that we are also to be nigal in this time period. So if we were not, and that has to remind us and has to give us a chizik that we still need a tikkun. So when we're eating that egg, it's reminding us that we don't want to be in this matzv next year where we're just reenacting the geula. We want to mamish be in the full-blown geula next year. And this is all how most of the Achrayim learn. However, the Goyin in the HaRav says chas v'shalom, not to mention avelos on yontif. So he says, what's the purpose of the beya? What's the minig that we eat the egg? He says, azeichel chagiga. Because there was a korban that was brought on Leila Pesach. We know there was on Erev Pesach that they ate on Leila Seder, so that they could eat the korban Pesach ala soiva. Beforehand, they ate the chagiga. And this Rabbi Yisai, he says the gain is why we eat the egg, that we should have the zeicher for the korban of the chagiga. I guess maybe it's not so much of a stira. Maybe the gain is teaching us, so we have to remember the korban Pesach, which gives us a tshuka and a cheshech to have the Beis HaMikdash. The only question I would ask Rabbi Yisai, which you can ask at the Shulchan Aruch, is about the salt water, which I'm being asked over here. But I'm being asked a different question. It's also a good question. But I would ask a different question. The Ramah brings down in Taf Ayin Vav and Sif Beis that we only have 2 tibulim this night, which of course we say in the Manashtana, that we only dip twice. So the Shaila is the Gans Minig of Klal Yisrael, I think. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that I know what goes beyond the Dalet. I don't know what goes on beyond the Dalet Amos of my Seder, but I know that most people, I think, if not all people, they dip the egg in the Zalzwasser. L'chayra, that's shver on the Ramah. That's shver on the Ramah. That when it comes to the Ramah tells us that we only do 2 tivulim. So there's a little bit of a tzarchi in why we're dipping the egg, which is a 3rd tibul. And there's a Kaf Chaim in Taf Ayin Vav and Sivkot and Chavav, Akadei Kach, he says that when you dip the egg, you should say Zeicher to the Korban Chagiga. I'm not sure if that's our minig, but upon him, they're just trying to show you, Rabbi, that even at the start of Shulchan Aruch, that everything that we do has a makor, excuse me, Everything we do has a makor, and therefore to cherish these minhagim. The Ramah brings down in Tov Ayin Vav Sif Aleph. He says, make sure, and most of us remember our Zaydas saying over, make sure, leave room for the Afikoimen. I still remember my Zaydas saying that. Make room for the Afikoimen. The Afikoimen has to be nechal ala seifa, and you have to eat it with an appetite. Explains the Mishabura. You have to have a taiva for it, like dessert. The Afikoimen, it's ashkaf, it's an attitude, Rabbi Yisai. The Afikoimen has to be eaten the way we can't wait to have dessert. Lavush says that you can't get full for a different reason. If you're going to get full during the first and foremost in the Shulchan Aruch is don't get filled. Because says the Lavush, you'll get filled up, you'll get all tired, and that's why a lot of times the second half of the Seder becomes a bit of a shlemazel. It's all for shlufindik. Sometimes for some people, they're half asleep and they're tired. If you keep on moving, so then the Seder will go. And you'll be able to say the Hallel Azoivas Midav Zayin. The Lavush says Khalil, you might fall asleep and not even say the Hallel. We could add, maybe nobody's not going to say the Hallel. Nobody's going to forget to say the Hallel. But Akapanim, you could become off a shlufindik in the Hallel. So we tell the person, don't get too filled up. Sometimes Shulchan Aruch turns into a real festive Suda. It's very important to have a Suda and a Simchas Yontif, but not at the expense, of the rest of the Seder. Now, very interesting. We know that there's halacha in Shulchan Aruch, there's a halacha brought in the Gemara. Most of us know that there's a din that you're not supposed to eat. You're not supposed to talk while you eat. You're not supposed to talk while you're eating. We know that a lot of people during a regular meal, they're not so makbid on this. The reason why is al sakana, because Shema yakdim kana lavesh. We're afraid that it'll taka chalila, it'll go down the windpipe chas v'chalila. A lot of people aren't so makbid. And it's brought from the Chida and Simikov Ayin. He says, what's the pshat taka? He says, maybe you could say, and I think if I'm not mistaken, Eli Rabbi says this, he says, maybe you could say, because the reason why one has to worry about being makdim kana lavesh is because when he's eating bas seba. And in those days, the Gemara time, they used to eat bas seba. So since they used to eat bas seba, therefore, there was this pachad of Shema Yakdim, the Kana Lavesh, maybe Taka, the windpipe, Chalila, because when you're eating in such a fashion, it could actually go the food into the wrong pipe. So Mamela, that says the Chidah, the Limitzchos, that today people don't eat, and people talk even while they eat. Obviously, Abba Isai, you understand that this is, at least on Seder night, you got to be very careful with this. On Seder night, many people are eating part of the meal, Be'ez Seba. Okay, from the point of the matzah, the Mar, nobody's speaking because we want the brachas to be going on the kairach. But afterward, during the Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah brings down that it's a davar toiv that a person should be masive in the whole Suda. So somebody who's being masive should be very careful not to be talking while he's being masive, while he's eating, to be careful. On this halacha, it's one time a year, you could be makayim this halacha. Now, what foods do you have during the Shulchan Aruch? So the Siach Yitzchak brings down that there is an inyan to have fish, not just because in general on Yontif there's an Indian, but because the Nashim Tzidkanias, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was mazmin in Europe, in Mitzrayim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was mazmin for them inside their buckets, fish, so that they can feed their husbands and they'll give them koyach. So it's a zeichel l'neisa. When your child asks you, why are we having fish? You tell them, because in the buckets, the Rebbeinu Shalom brought fish. So it was for the part of the nace. You must show simcha on this night. You must eat a suda, which shows simcha that was the day that we left Mitzrayim, and that was the day we became the chosen nation. Rav Shlomo Zalman says that everything here is a part of the Seder. On the Seder, there's no dessert. It doesn't say anywhere. It says Kadesh, Urchatz, Karpas, Yachatz. It doesn't say dessert, because tonight's dessert is the Afikoimen. And if you look, and the whole menu is Al Pi Hashem. When the children say, is there dessert tonight? You say, no. Tonight, there's dessert. There's dessert. What's the dessert? You look at the Lashon of Lavush in Tov Ayin Ches. He says, Afiku. What's Afikoiman? Afiku, bring it out. What does everybody say? Give me the dessert. Everybody wants the dessert. Afiku, bring it out. So tonight, the dessert, it's sweet to us, and bring it out is the matzah, is the Afikoiman. We're Keveya, Chazal, we're Keveya for us. That the matzah is sweet like the Paris, and therefore tonight there's no kompot. Tonight there's matzah, and that's the dessert. What's the menu? The Shulchan Aruch and Tov Ayin Vav, we know the halacha is that a person can't eat sli on this night. You shouldn't eat sli. The Maisa, it's very interesting. Mishnah Berurah has a very big kula over here. I'm very surprised about this kula. Mishnah Berurah brings down a kula that even though we know there's a whole sugya of tzli achar bishul and bishul achar tzli, and we know when it comes to the Shabbos, we're machmir, but over here, we should have been machmir the other way, kloimar. We know there's a lacha, you shouldn't be soila, you shouldn't do tzli, you shouldn't roast something. Here, Mishnah Berurah is mekel if it's tzli, and then afterward, you're mevashel it. Mishnah Berurah is mekel on that. It's interesting, I saw that the Pri Chodesh argues. He says, no, if you do tzli, and then afterward you do bishul, that's still a problem. And when I say tzli, Rabbi, I mean roasting without liquid. In other words, on Seder night, the way it's supposed to be, Rabbi says, you make the meat, you put in there a lot of the liquid, a lot of roitiv, let it be soaking in the liquid. That's how it's supposed to be on Seder night. In order not to come to a problem that it looks like the Korban Pesach mamish. So that's the minig Yisrael. You put a lot of liquid in your roast beef, but you're not so much roast and a lot of the beef, but a lot of roasted, a lot of liquid beef. The only thing is, Mishnah Berurah says, if you roast it and then afterward you mevashel it, so the Mishnah Berurah has a kula over here. I tell you, it's a big kula. The Pri Chodesh is against this kula, and he says that maybe you're right by Hilchos Korbanos. Maybe it doesn't have a shame of a tzli, but he's still against it. I was thinking, what's the pshat in the Mishnah Berurah? Maybe over here it's all a vort of a zecher. So I guess what the Mishnah Berurah is trying to tell us is that in the end of the day, when you're tasting it, you're going to be tasting a bishul taste, a cooked taste, because afterwards you're going to put in a lot of liquid. So since you're going to put in a liquid, and this applies even to chicken, like I'm being asked over here, even to chicken, but since you're putting in liquid, to the taste that's going to remain afterward is not going to be a bishul, a tzli taste, it's going to be a bishul taste, but it's a chiddush of the Mishnah Berurah, nonetheless. Excuse me. The chiddush of the Mishnah Berurah, nonetheless. Excuse me, everybody. I'll just read you Lashon Mishnah Berurah. Mishnah Berurah says, "V'nearly tzaloi v'achakach bishloi mutter." But bishloi v'achakach tzaloi, that's that. You can't have bishol and then afterward roast it. And on that, the Pri Chodesh argues, no, if somebody wants to do like the Mishnah Berurah, and he wants to first roast it a little bit and then afterward cook it, you have to know that the Mishnah Berurah is mekel. I wouldn't be mekel just simply because on the night that we're doing everything with perfection, I would want to get even the sheet of the Pri Chodesh in, and the Pri Chodesh says that im tzaloi v'achakach bishloi, it is a problem, and it's only by korban, there's a special kula, but not over here, and therefore there's definitely makim to be machmir. You put a lot of liquid and you make a nice liquidy roasted beef. Now, the Maisa, one of the most interesting sugyas, I would say, is the zman of the afikoyim, the zman of the achilas afikoyim. It's a big sugya. I have a big agenda, so I'm going to do whatever I can in the sugya and not do it justice. I'll admit right away because I want to get to the rest of the seder. But what lemais is the zman achila of the matzah? So the first shayla is, what was the zman achilas korban Pesach? This is a machlekes in the Gemara in Pesachim. Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah, Rebbe Kiva, and they have a machlekes till when did the korban Pesach go? Rebbe Kiva's shita, as everybody knows, I think, is that it was called a laila, and Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah said you had until chatzos to finish the korban Pesach. The Gemara brings a drasha which connects it. Excuse me. The Gemara brings a drasha which connects it to matzah. I'll just read you for a moment. Excuse me. Rabbi Kiva says that this man achilas korban Pesach. Let me see what the Gemara is. 1 second. This man achilas korban Pesach according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is ad chatzos. Rabbi Kiva says kol halayla. On that says Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah that matzah bisman hazeh you have only until chatzos, because since the matzah is hukash to the korban Pesach, so we don't say just in the time of the mikdash. Even today, you have to make sure that the matzah is eaten by the ending time of when the korban Pesach could have been eaten, especially that the afikoyim is bimkar the korban Pesach. So therefore, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says you have to finish the afikoyim by chatzos. In our Tzeinah Kedosha, it's around 12:40, and Rabbi Kiva says no, you have kol halayla until Amud HaShachar. So this is a tremendous machlekes. And Rabbi said this is ma'asim b'kol. Everybody has this problem, especially now that they change the clocks. So let's say this much later, and many people have this problem. Comes again the Rosh, and the Rosh in Siman Lamed Ches says, "Omar Rava, achal matzah bisman hazeh after chatzos." According to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, you're not yotzei. He says, l'chayr the halacha is like Rabbi Lazar. Now, in all due fairness, Rabbi Isai, we're talking about matzah right now. We're not talking about the afikoimen. And there's a big shaila if the afikoimen is the ikar mitzvah, or like I said, that the afikoimen is connected to Korban Pesach. We'll try to come to this. Akapanim, listen to the lashon of the Rosh. He says, l'chayra, you have to worry about chatzais, because the Mishnah is a stam Mishnah, a Pesach acha chatzais is mitam yadayim. And Cain is stam Mishnah in Ezim Mekoimen that we say every day. Everybody knows that every day we say in the Ezim Mekoimen that a Pesach eina nechel ela tzli eina nechel ela ad chatzais eina nechel. There's a big remez over here. Why doesn't it say that Korban Pesach is nechel ad chatzais? It says eina nechel ela ad chatzais. Eina nechel. There's a big remez over here by side. In Pesach, eina nechel. Everything, the foods are limited. Everything is limited. Eina nechel. But Akopanim says the Rosh Stam Mishnah. There's a Stam Mishnah which says eina nechel ela ad chatzais. So it seems to be we pass in halacha, says the Rosh, like Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah, that you only have until chatzais. And this Rabbi Isai says the Rosh, who knows? Maybe according to Rebbe Kiva. Also, Rebbe Kiva says you have the whole night, but we know always when the mitzvah you have the whole night. But kedei laharchik, it's adam and avera. We tell you to finish it by chatzais. So says the Rosh, even according to Rebbe Kiva, maybe you have to worry. Kedei laharchik, it's adam and avera by an issa deraisa. Now that could be only about the matzah's mitzvah, because that's where there's a deraisa, unless you learn that the afikoimen is the ikar mitzvah. Akapanim, the Rosh goes very clearly, and that's always gepasted in Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch paskins in Siman Taf Ayin Zayin. Excuse me, Taf Ayin Zayin. He says, Yehei zoyer lechol koydim chatzos. You must be zoyer and careful to eat the afikoimen before chatzos. And then the Ramaya adds not only that, you have to make sure you do even the halal before chatzos. All right, we'll see what that's all about. Al-Kapanim, this is what was Rabbeinu Tam says the Rosh was noyig like this, and this Rabbi is the Pesach in Shulchan Aruch. Now, the Maisa, the Shuas Yankiv brings down, he's the Rav in Lavav, and he brings down that the Ikar is like the Rambam, which says that you have, like Rebbe Kiva, the whole night. You have the whole night, and it's a dua that the minig of the Chassam Sofer was taka the whole night also. In Hagei Chassam Sofer, they bring down, the Mechas Yitzchak brings this in Chelik Tes and Siman Mem Ches. He Grad himself asks an unbelievable question. He says, how's it possible? It's a plian is gava. Eich efshe delay hikbid l'kayim ma'kosu b'shulchan aruch kanal. How's it possible? He has a shayla in the Chassam Sofer that the Chassam Sofer wasn't Mekayim a Mefurish halacha in Shulchan Aruch, but it's Yadua that the Chassam Sofer Taka ate Dafikoymin after Chatzais. Deishal Avram, the Buchacha, he has a different plan. He says a plan like this, that it's enough maybe to have started Dafikoymin before Chatzais. Okay, it doesn't give us that much leeway. This is like the famous Aruch HaShulchan that he says if you start before this man ends man of Tefillah, you start the Shmoneh Esrei before the endings man. So then it's like Lahavdil, like when Bilam wanted to curse Klal Yisrael, if he would have chopped it in that Rega Kimeimra, then the Klal could have continued. You should know, Rabbi said, Mishnah doesn't hold like that. He holds that you have to finish the davening before this man, the endings man of Tefillah. But there is a Buchacha that says that perhaps this would be an Eitzah, at least to start the Afikoymin before Chatzais. Now, Rabbi say, this is very difficult to go against Shulchan Aruch. If somebody has the minig, what should I say? He has a minig, the Chassam Sofer had such a minig, and they weren't makbid, and they went like the Rambam, that you had kol halayla, and that you're allowed to eat kol halayla. There certainly is such a mahalach like that. L'chayra, one that does like the Pashut Pshat in Shulchan Aruch, he has to finish Afikoymin b'chatzais. That's also very difficult. What do? Come to gain the Avnei Nezin Siman Shin Pei Aleph. You do a ticket tonight. I'll say bekitzer because I think the Olam knows. The Avnei Nezer says, look, what's your problem? Let's say it's 12:40. So 12:35 says the Avnei Nezer, go eat the Afikoymin. And you'll be happy. According to Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah, you're eating the Afikoymin before Chatzais and everybody's happy. Okay, well, what's the problem? The problem is you want to eat. So he says, what's the problem? Make it tonight that if Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah is right, so then I'm eating the Afikoymin as Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah. I'll wait 30 seconds until 12:40 when I finish my afikomen. I won't eat because you can't eat after afikomen. That's our entire problem. Once it hits 12:40, kimoi, that the ending time, says the Avnei Nezer, of the mitzvahs at chatzais, so too the kpeda of not eating after afikomen is only until chatzais, means the whole mitzvah is over by chatzais. Ah, great. So now it's like in the morning you're allowed to have a coffee. So then according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, I'm okay. If Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is correct, I ate the afikomen. And I can wait until 12:40. At 12:40, I can eat because the whole mitzvah is over according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. According to Rabbi Kiva, if Rabbi Kiva is right, so then Gevaldik, I don't want this to be the afikomen because you can't eat after afikomen. What do I want this to be? I just want it to be stam matzah that I'm having. And a tnai you can do on mitzvahs, and then I'll be able to eat later, and then I'll have another afikomen, more matzah. So I'll go at 1 o'clock in the morning, I'll have my next afikomen, and then I won't have to eat after that. The Gevaldik tnai of the Avnei Nezer, Maisa, it sounds like a Gevaldik tnai. If Shlomo Zalman, Eliashiv, and many Gedolim were makbid to do like it says in Shulchan Aruch, and to finish afikomen by chatzais. And we're not saying on the Tanai. Why not? Why not to be saying on the Tanai? The Tanai is Gevaldik, and the Brisker Rav, everybody who has the Agada knows the Brisker Rav said it's such a Gevaldik thing that you don't even have to make the Tanai. Now this, I'll leave you to think about. Why would I not have to make the Tanai? What's it sad to not have to make the Tanai? Says the Brisker Rav, it's Memela. Any matzah I ate at the end, that's called an afikomen. If Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is right, Gamarnu, at 12:40, you can start weiter. And I didn't say explicitly it's for an afikomen, but what's an afkamina? This will be the end. The mitzvah ends at this point. And then according to Rebbe Kiva, I don't have to say if Rebbe Kiva is right. I gotta have a difficult time with the Brisker Rav, and I prefer not to go into it because we have a lot we have to be maspik. But kum to gain the going with Moshe. And Moshe has a very beautiful tshuva about this. I quoted it to the Olam. Moshe is actually in the 122nd and 23rd page in Chelik Hay in the Orach Chaim. It used to be in the Amatayra, but now it's printed in the Igris. Over there, Moshe says, look, this Avnei Nezer is a riesige chiddush that you see most of the Dairis, nobody in Klal Yisrael was Saimichan. All right, people, the ones that were makbid for chatzais, and the ones that weren't makbid, the second they got to afikomen, they wouldn't eat after afikomen. In fact, for Moshe, why not? Let them eat. If they decide to eat, they'll eat, and then they'll have another afikomen afterward. It's one time Rav Moshe has. Another time it says Rav Moshe, wait a minute, very nice that you dealt with Rav Elazar ben Azariah, but ironically, the one you're going to have the problem with is Rebbe Kiva. Because Rebbe Kiva, who holds that the mitzvah is called a laila, says Rav Moshe, but even he agrees laharchik es adam and avera. So since you have to be marchik adam and avera, so then even according to Rebbe Kiva, you should try to be finishing before chatzais. And for that, no t'nai is going to help. Number two. Number three, l'chayra, there's a big kasha. Maybe the ending point of the mitzvah is at chatzais, according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. But the taste in the mouth, maybe that's called a laila. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was saying the Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim with Rebbe Kiva, kol lohisei laila. So maybe we want the taste in the mouth, kol lohisei laila. And this is why Rav Moshe says it's against the Pashup Pshat and Shulchan Aruch, and it's against the Mekubal and all the Dairis. And therefore, as my Seder, I try to be makbid. That there were a lot of Rabbanim and Tzaddikim and Gedolim that were makbid. So I tried to be makbid to finish before Chatzais, at least Afikaimin. But I don't want to shtarzach the Seder. So I tell the children, if they want, they can make the Tanai. And that's what my kids do. They can make the Tanai, and that's what the people of my Seder do. That's what they make the Tanai. And Gesundheit. The Laharis Nasin is Matzdik Avnei Nezer. Anyone who wants to make the Tanai, he can make the Tanai. One that wants to be Seimich and some Seifer and eat even without the Tanai, okay, that's a big Chiddush. It wasn't meaning like that. It is against Shulchan Aruch. For more of a discussion, I am in the Laharis Nasin, in Dalid, Mem Aleph, and Beis. He has a very respectful tshuva. He explains who Rav Moshe was before he argues on Rav Moshe. Over there he says, maybe the only time that we have this Laharchik Azam and Avera was when we're dealing with the Matzah Deraisa, Laharchik Azam and Avera, but not if Afikaimin is Rabbanan. Ayin Sham, maybe Rabbeinu Tam, who was makbid before Chatzais, was only on the matzah, and most of us are makbid on the matzah before Chatzais. Ayin Sham, Rabbi Yisai, but we have a big agenda, and let's go weiter. How much Avikaimin do I have to eat? So Chayra, we should have to have a Kazayas. The Taz brings down an incredible maril. It says, since there's a Chavivitz for matzahs, So therefore, we have a kebeya. This is a tzarchi in gadol, says the Pri Megadim. Where do we find that because we have a certain chavivus in a mitzvah, so therefore the shear changes and it's not a kezayis, it's a kebeitza. It's an incredible thing. The Magen Avram brings down that in Tafayin Zayin, in Tafayin Zayin, he brings down that there's two inyonim in the Afikoimen. There's a zeicher for the Pesach, and there's a zeicher for the matzah that was eaten with the Pesach. So therefore, we want to have a kebeya, so you can have both for the Pesach, for the korban, and for the matzah. But the evidence, of course, a kezayis is enough, and if somebody can't handle a kezayis, a pregnant woman, etc., avada kezayis is enough. If someone can't handle a kebeya, avada kezayis is enough. And the Maisa, that's what it says in the Mishabura and the Graz and the Archashulchan, that lechatchilis you have two kezaisim, which is barak around half of a hand matzah. It's hard to say exact, obviously, but b'diavad, it's around the quarter. Kezayis is enough. Now, dafka, you're not supposed to eat it b'bas echas. Some say that's what Shlomo Zalman said, the two kezaisim, because here there are some shitas that hold it's a zeicher just for the Pesach, and the Rashbam says it's a zeicher just for the matzah. Others say it's for both. Al kapanim. The most beautiful lashon, Rabbi Yisai, is the lashon that you see in the Rosh, in the Torah, in the Shulchan Aruch, in the Tafayin Zayin Tzif Beis. He says, if you forgot the afikoimen and you already went and you washed the mayim achreinim, it doesn't matter. The lashon of the Shulchan Aruch is so beautiful. He says, Im shachach v'loyachal afikoimen, and you already said, you already did havlan v'nivrach, or you were naitel yadayim. So then the halacha is that it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, eat the afikoimen below birchas hamayit. He says the Mishabura, why? Because tonight we're sitting on the Eibishter's table. Says the Mishabura, you don't have a right to forget tonight. The Rebbeinu Shalom was kaveya the seder. So this das balabayis. The Rebbeinu Shalom is the balabayis tonight, and he decides that you have to eat the afikoimen. So you would eat the afikoimen even without another hamayitzi. Beautiful lashon. Now, what happens if you forgot heseba at the afikoimen? You know, that these things happen, you know, when everyone's doing things together, sometimes you have an afikoimen, you have one guy's eating afikoimen, one guy's still in the middle of the Suda, one guy's already finished the afikoimen, you know. So the mele that can happen in afikoimen when everyone's together by the yayin and by the matzah. So then we say, seba. But by afikoimen, a person forgets a seba, what's the din? So there's a Shulchan Aruch, there's a Mishabura in Tafayin Beis and Tikot and Chav Beis. He says, don't eat it again, because you're not allowed to have two afikoimens. Once you have the afikoimen, that's it. You can't eat matzah after the afikoimen. So it sounds like that we wouldn't have another matzah and you'll be saimich on the shitas that held that you don't need to eat with a seba, because the Rav held that the bisman hazeh we don't eat with a seba, and therefore it's not considered their chayres for us. Mitzad sheni, there's a Mishabru in Tafayin Zayin Tzidkot and Dalid. He says that if you forgot to do a seba on the afikoimen, you ate the afikoimen without a seba. He says it depends. If it's kosher for you to eat another afikoimen, then it's okay. What's the obvious implication? That if it's not kosher, then you should have another afikoimen. You should eat more afikoimen beseba. Before the Mishabura told us you're not allowed to eat another afikoimen beseba. What's going on here? And the Chayim makes a lot of sense. What the Mishabura previously said, because what's your chumrah that you want to do it again with a seba, but your chumrah is going to be a kula. What happens when your chumrah is going to be a kula that you're going to eat after afikoimen. You're going to have more matzah after afikoimen. Once you have the afikoimen, you're not supposed to eat after the afikoimen. You know, somebody once asked the Vilna Gaon that does he eat gebraks on Seder, on Pesach? So the Gaon said yes. So he said, why? It's a chumrah. The Gaon was makbid on the chumras of everything. Everyone knows. So the Gaon said, what do you want? The Gaon said, by me, the Kneidlach are the Simchas Yontif. Weißt du, ist the Gaon verstanden Kneidlach. So if the Kneidlach is Simchas Yontif, my chumrah of gebraks, which is a chumrah ba'alma, not medina, obviously for those that don't have the minhag, but the chumrah ba'alma, so then that chumrah is going to be a kula in Simchas Yontif. So here also, if you're going to go and do a seba and have another afikoimen, that's a gavaldik chumrah to have a seba. But since our cheat is at all, you don't need a seba bisman that. Maybe it's a kula in having a second afikoimen. So what's the pshat? Steer in the Mishabura. Goyna Gadol Rabbeinu Gadol Reb Chaim Kanievsky Zecher Tzadik v'Kodesh Levroche. The Ruach HaKodesh of the door. He has an answer to this in the Sheina Lochas and Siman Yud Aleph. Ayin and Reb Moshe and Gimel Samach Zayin. Maybe there's a relationship between these two terutzim, but Reb Chaim says it in 3 words. Reb Chaim says the answer is that the Mishnah Brura and Tav Ayin Zayin, where he says don't do it again, is talking about where you were Mesiach Das. So now it's considered That's all that Ramesh, that's all that Rechaim says. Siach das. In Tafayin Zayin, it's where you weren't a Siach das. So therefore, you could have another Afikoyman. What does he mean? It means if I was Mesiach das, I already did the Afikoyman, then I look, I'm finished, I'm done, that's it. And I say, I'm not eating anymore, I finished. Then I looked at my guy next to me and I said, oh, hey, I forgot to do a Seba. So now on that, we'll say that that's a Siach das, then it's called another Afikoyman. You shouldn't have Afikoyman after Afikoyman. But Masha Ein Kain, if I wasn't Mesiach das, so then I'm in the middle of eating my Afikoyman, I finish it, I didn't say I'm done. And then I look over, hey, he's doing a Seba, I forgot to do a Seba. So now we could look at it as one long extended Afikoyman. Ooh, one long extended Afikoyman. More matzah, more amuna, sigeveldik. The Iker is Rabbi Yisai's halt cup, and vergesst nicht, don't forget. And there's halacha, ein maftirin achar Afikoyman. What's the reason why ein maftirin? Says Dershbam. We don't want you to forget the taste. We want the taste in your mouth. The whole night, we want that taste. Ad kedei kach, and the Shulchan Aruch in Tafayin Ches says, "Ein lechol shum davar." Don't eat anything after Afikoyman. The Graz in Sivkat and Aleph in Tafayin Ches has an incredible chiddush. He says matzah. This is not like we just said a minute ago. He says matzah you can eat after Afikoyman. You can have more Afikoyman after Afikoyman. You can have more matzah after matzah. Why? Because it's not a bittul of the taste. You're just having more and more matzah. The Chayadam, the Mishabura brings down in Sivkat and Chabez what we just mentioned, says it's aser. And the lashon of the Chayadam is you can't eat two Afikoymans. And I suppose it means, and you see Rosh Hashanah also says like that, it's only if I explicitly stopped. I said, I'm done with my Afikoyman. But Masha'en Kain, if a person is having a lot of matzah, no, it's all one big Afikoyman. Now, let's say a person did by mistake have dessert after the Afikoyman. He had something after the Afikoyman. So the Aruch HaShulchan brings a Chayk Yankiv in Tafayin Ches and Sifkat in Gimel that says, okay, it's nish geferlich and it's fine. The last taste in your mouth it wasn't Afikoyman, it's nish geferlich. The Mishabura says it's geferlich. And Mishabura ad kidei kach is an unbelievable chiddush. He says you have to eat another kezayis in order that the lasting taste should be the Afikoyman, which is an incredible chiddush because you already did the Afikoyman. And now, by having another matzah, I guess the Mishabura is being Saimach on the Graz because you're not allowed to eat matzah after matzah. So I guess he's saying, be Saimach on the Graz because we must get that taste and have another Afikoyman. So if you messed up and you had you had dessert after Afikoyman, have another Afikoyman, at least the Kezayis, don't have two. Next, Shulchan Aruch says don't eat. Magen Avraham says don't drink after Afikoyman. Shulchan Aruch says that the only thing is mayim. The only thing you're allowed to have after Afikoyman is water. And he says all mashkim are like yayin. The only thing allowed seems to be water. Says the Mishabura, and Sivkat and Aleph, not Chomer Medina, because we want the tam matzah. The tam matzah. That's one reason brought down. Another reason brought down is because we don't want the person to get drunk. We want him to be able to be saying Sipri Yitzis Mitzrayim, Bislavis, Kolos et Laila. And even if you're not going to be saying Gedoisa Laila, but Al we don't want you to do something which is going to create a Yichat Fenashena. We want you to at least have the ability to be able to say over Yitzis Mitzrayim the whole night. So we don't want you to have a drink which is going to make you shikker. Another reason brought down not to drink after the Afikoyman is because it's Nirik and Moisef on the Kaisis. Now, there's obviously nafkaminas, and like always, we can give a whole shir about this, Rabbi said. But Bekitzer Amaisa, the Mishabura says, we are machmer on all the reasons that we don't drink after the Afikoyman. However, Mishabura says, if it's a strong time, then it's asa. Look like Coca-Cola has a strong time, and I guess natural orange juices have a strong time. I guess a light seltzer, one of those light flavored seltzer does not have a strong time. No, that's Peseder. It's not Meshaker. It's not going to make you drunk. It's not near Kamoisav Alakaisis, and it's not going to take away the time. Mishabura brings down an incredible Mishabura. He seems to say that tea is a malkum to be makel on. I suppose he means without sugar. A little bit of a tzarchian. It's also tzarchian is that some people use tea for Chamer Medina. From this Mishabura is an incredible idea. Mishabura seems to say that tea is not Chamer Medina because otherwise it would be near Kamoisav Alakaisis. What about coffee? Which is very negay at the end of the Seder, a person's dead tired and he wants to be able to say it with his slavas, or he wants to stay up the whole night and say, Stipri Tzias Mitzrayim. You should know that some Sefer did have a coffee, and the Ben Ish Chai and Sav and Sivkat and Lamed Aleph brings down there is a kula to have a coffee. This is also a little bit of a tzarchian. I guess you could be mekel b'makam tzarich. Also, maybe the ikar reason is out the shichris. I would imagine that again, maybe not to be having a whole geschmacka coffee with sugar and all geschmacka zachen. But upon him, there is a makom to be makel. If a person needs to have a coffee, there is a makom to be makel. Smoking, anyways, on Yontif is a very big shaila today, and it's a very big shaila not on Yontif, and it's a very big shaila always. Derech Agav, whoever vapes, uses an e-cigarette, you must make sure it's kosher Pesach, and you must make sure that your e-cigarette is kosher Pesach. And I'm not going into that cigarette right now. But Al Kapanim, the Be'er says, smoking after the Seder, stay away. Even though the Ayvit says if the person is desperate, maybe there's a kula. Mouthwash, l'chayr, also you should stay away because that takes out the time of the matzah. Al Kapanim, l'chatchila, you should stay away from mouthwash. Only after the Seder. Now, what happens if I'm in the middle of my afikoymen and I change my mind? Okay, that's a big shaila. L'chayra, I'm in the middle of afikoymen. Can I change my mind and then I'll have dessert because I'm still hungry and I still see I have enough that I could eat the matzah? I don't know. At that point, I would have thought, maybe eat the matzah and have it ala soiva. But he says, no, don't worry. There's plenty of room in here and I'll be able to have matzah afterward. This is something to think about. Rosh Hashanah is mistapik. If a person toich k'dei diber can uproot the matzah, the mitzvah. I remember once I ate a kazayis already. You got the mitzvah. So if you already got the mitzvah, can I uproot it? Do we say toich k'dei diber and I can uproot it and say, no, I don't want this to be for afikoymen and I want it to be stam matzah. You could Claire is what to think about. Rabbeinu David says that this Isser, Rabbeinu David in Pesachim says this Isser is kol halayla. You're not supposed to have a coffee or kol halayla. I hope it means that if you wake up, let's say there's a fire tug yid and he wants to have a coffee at 3 a.m. before the day, I hope he's makel once the fellow went to sleep. But the Chagankiv Mefurish is makel once he slept a bit. Let's say a person, he wants to say, you see his Mitzrayim, kol halayla, and he wants to just take a 30-minute nap or something like that. So then when he wakes up after 30 minutes, he can have a coffee. Anyway, there are shitas that are make on the coffee. It's not a mashka mashaker. And some sefer was makel, and he slept a little bit. So, chayra, if it's betachlis to give him the ability to say the Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim, that I guess itself is enough of a tam. Some people have a minig, they hang the matzah. I'm sure some have seen this minig. When it's obvious, Shaila, you have to ask. It's clear. We know the Gemara Pesachim tells us that if a person hangs bread, he's toila his nechasim, he's toila his parnasa. So it's kashal aniyas. So I guess the schira of Yitzias Mitzrayim, why is it that they have this minig that they hang the matzah? Because it's a schira it's a reminder the whole year of Yitzias Mitzrayim. I guess the reminder the whole year of Yitzias Mitzrayim is going to protect him from the aniyas. Don't forget that they were Yetzei Berchush Gadol, and it'll be Shaimer from the Paranias. There's a Mishnah Berurah, really, I think, that brings this minig. Mishnah Berurah and Tafayin Zayin, and Sivkat and Tezvav, brings down, no, I'm in the wrong simon, Tes, Tough, Tough, Ayin Zayin. But I don't want to take up your time, but this minig, anybody who has the minig, l'chayra, he'll be protected. He'll be protected because Hashem yitz mitzvah l'yeda davar. The minig is that the Baal Bayis does the zimun. Even though normally, usually the Baal Bayis gives the zimun to somebody else, but on Leil Seder, he's the one that says Rabbi Yisrael the Baal Benchim because it's a night where he's the toiv ayin. He should make the bracha, but the Mishnah Berurah says there's no kpeida. However, you should try to have 3 people in order to try to have a mizum. The Mishnah Berurah says he is allowed to give the zimun to somebody else, but certainly a person should make an effort, which I'm sure everybody is making an effort to have a zimun. The actual Rav Moshe held the cup during benching. It's one of the dalakaisis, and this is pashtus what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to hold the cup during benching. That means not just the person who's benching who's making the zimun. It means all of us are supposed to be having the kais, the brachas on the kais, and therefore you hold the kais during Birchas Hamazon. Shlomo Zalman says, what happens if a person forgot Yalav Yavai? Very interesting. You forgot Yalav Yavai, why do you have to bench again? Even a lady, says Rabbi Akiva Eiger, because she has a chiyuv of matzah. So if you forget Yalav Yavai, and also the chayra ritzei, If you forget ritzei, so you have a chiyuv of having a bread, matzah kapanim, not bread. So if you forgot yalav yavar ritzei, you have to bench again. Now, if you have to bench again, do you need? And let's say he did a real good job. He benched again. He had the matzah. Excuse me. He forgot yalav yavar and he drank the kais. Now he has to bench again. Does he need another kais? I found the three-way machlekes in this. On the one hand, we have to worry it's in Ma'aseh Valakaisis. Mitzad Sheni, also you have to keep in mind, l'chayra, when I bench and I forget Yalav Yavai, maybe I'm Yotzei benching. I just wasn't Yotzei saying Yalav Yavai. Or maybe not. Raya, if you forgot Yalav Yavai, and then you forgot Ritzei. So now we make you bench again. You have to get Yalav Yavai and Ritzei. I got the Yalav Yavai, I got the Ritzei. So l'chayra, it means I didn't bench. So if I didn't bench, so then maybe I do need bring another kais. Says the Goyim Rishon Mezamen, if you forgot Yalav Yavai, do it ala kais again, and it's not negay Ma'aseh ala kaises because you weren't yaitze that previous kais. Rav Moshe Sternbuch says saif. Why? It's true that the Daled kaises Chazal said put it on each mitzvah. Put this mitzvah with Kiddush, put this mitzvah with the Agoda, put this mitzvah with the Halal. But technically, you could be yaitze the Daled kaises even if you drink them at intervals, not attached to a mitzvah. As I bezai, says Rav Moshe Sternbuch, over here, it's true. You weren't yaitze benching, you have to bench again. But I was yaitze the kais. Typically, if I would stand drink a third kais, you'd be yaitze that kais. So Rav Moshe Sternbuch says, so what should you do? You should bench ala kais, and that'll be the same kais. Don't make the bracha, and that'll be the kais that you have afterward at halal, and you'll drink it then. I saw the Shevet HaLevi. He goes one step further. He says, no, you don't even need the kais. Just bench again, even without a kais. You yaitze the third kais. In Gemarnu, the Iker Rabbi says, halt, cup, and don't forget. That's for sure. And don't get into the shaila. I suppose if you forgot, in the stomach you do, like Rav Moshe Sternbuch, that at least bench ala kais, but don't make the bracha on the kais until afterward, because the Ma'aseh were yaitze the kais already. Now, I did see an interesting thing. I saw that there are those that ask, I saw that there are those that ask that if a person is misupik, I thought that those that say that if a person is misupik, if he said Yalav Yavai, we assume he didn't say. I'm misupik about that, everybody said, because tonight everybody's with a bencher and everybody's with a Haggadah. So I would say the opposite. I would say if the person is misupik, I think tonight we assume that he's reading it out of the Haggadah. I would imagine if he's reading it out of the Haggadah and he's misupik if he said it, he could assume that he did say it. But this is something which requires a further Ian. Don't forget and halt cup. Everything has a seder. Rabbeinu Bechaya says you're supposed to pour the wine for the fourth kais before Shvay Chamascha. And that's what the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch says. And that's what I do. Hungarian. The Chayodam and the Aruch HaShulchan, they say, no, you're supposed to pour after Shvay Chamascha. Everything has a seder. Rav Moshe Feinstein poured the kais, the fourth kais, after Shvay Chamascha. I guess if you're Hungarian, you do it before Shvay Chamascha. If you're not Hungarian, you do it after Shvay Chamascha. But everything has a seder. At that time, the Chayk Yankiv says, you pour the kais shel Elio. My minig is like the kitzer. I pour the kais shel Elio at the beginning of the seder. Rav Moshe Sternbuch brings down that the Balabayas should pour for Elio. The Chashav Agas, the Balabayas should pour for him. In Shvay Chamascha, you have tremendous kavanas. The Azarua says, since we mentioned Mitzrayim, we want to give a klala to all those goyim, and the goyim, when they hack us, we want everybody to hack them. You have to say it with tremendous kavana. The minig is that we say Shvay Chamascha standing. Rav Elyashiv had that minig. If you don't have that minig, you should know that the Chazaynish and Rosh Hashanah said Shvay Chamascha sitting. The Matan Moshe says that we open up the door, and that's the minig most of us have, because it's not enough just to speak Emunah tonight. We have to show Emunah tonight. And we have to do a Maisa to bring the Bias Goyel tonight. The Aruch HaShulchan says you say Baruch Haba. Rosh Hashanah and Rav Elyashiv say this is a emistik, a chizik in Emunah. You say Baruch Haba, we're mechazik ourselves in Emunah. The Chedush HaRim brings down that the native Yehuda used to be Malav Eliyahu Navi out the door. Has to be a tremendous ace Emunah, a tremendous time of Emunah. My meaning is yes to walk to the door. I'm being asked about walking to the door. I think a lot of our minig is, some people have the minig that's only the women of the house open up the door. My minig is that we all go to the door. The goyin, when it comes to Hallel, the goyin says you don't have to be makbid on this Ramah and finish the Hallel before Chatzais. The Aruch HaShulchan says he doesn't even know why. Why would you have to finish it before Chatzais? It's interesting. Sounds like because maybe you have to have the entire Dalet Koisis and everything before Chatzais. Maybe the Dalet Koisis is connected to the matzah, but Akopanim, most people certainly don't have that minig of finishing. And the Aruch HaShulchan says, and the Kohen says, you don't have to be makbid on that. The Chassan Sefer said that by the Seder of the Chasam Sefer, you can hear him saying the Hallel mamish down the streets of Preshburg. Mamish down the streets of Preshburg. The Aruch HaShulchan says you don't have to hold the cup during the Hallel. In Brisk Lemaisa, they hold the cup during Hallel. I think Rav Chaim Kanievsky, Zechrona Levracha, he held the cup while it was on the table. Upon him, when you say the Hallel, if you have 3 people, even you and 2 people, the wife, even a child, that's enough. So you say the Hoidu Lashem Kita, even then they answer after you. This is a Graisa Inyan. If this is a very interesting shaila. After the 4th kais, I forgot, let's say, I made a bracha achrayna, like we all make a bracha achrayna on the lagefen. Let's say I forgot Yalav Yavam. So they say that Rav Shach, I'm sorry, you forgot the mention of the Chag Pesach. You forgot to mention in the bracha achrayna, in the alagefen of the Pesach. You're supposed to mention the Yantif, obviously, in the alagefen. Normally, it's not makiv. But says Rav Shach declared the Shaila, he asked the Shaila to Rav Meir Tzvi Bergman, to his son-in-law at the Seder. He said, what happens if you forget on Seder night? Because here, Avada, you have to drink a cup of wine. So then normally a person on a regular Shabbos, if he gets Ritzei, there's no necessity to have a piece of cake. So since there's no necessity to have a piece of cake, if you forgot to mention a Ritzei, so therefore it's not ma'akiv. It's only ma'akiv when you can't be without it. Ritzei on Shabbos, you can't be without it, so therefore it's ma'akiv. Yalav Yava, you can't be without it on Yontif, by Pesach, on Leil Shabbos, on Leil Seder, therefore it's ma'akiv, you have to bench again. We found one main Sheva is an Alagefen, that's ma'akiv l'chayra, because I must have 4 cups of wine. And since I must have 4 cups of wine, therefore, the Alagefen is ma'akiv. If the Alagefen is ma'akiv, leaving out the Askara of the Yontif should be ma'akiv. Lenias Daiti, I don't understand the Shaila, because you certainly could be Yotzei. Again, we lechatchila, maybe we drink the whole kois and we try to drink a revius and whatnot, but certainly you're Yotzei with Malay Lugmav. So since you're Yotzei with Malay Lugmav, l'chayra, that doesn't require an Alagefen. We paskin that you don't make an Alagefen on Malay Lugmav. We drink a revius b'dafka to make sure that we're able to make an Alagefen, so that we get out of the suffix. But l'chayra, since a Malay Lugmav is enough, and there's a tzad to say that you don't make an Alagefen on a Malay Lugmav, so even though you drank a revius, but you could have drunk only a Malay Lugmav. So therefore, the amount is not ma'akiv. In other words, the amount that requires an Alagefen is not ma'akiv. Therefore, I would imagine if you forgot the Askara, that you are Yotzei b'diavad, even though they say Rav Shach had the Shaila, offer tachas raglav, but I don't understand the Shaila. The Leket Yosher brings down, Rabbi Yisai, the Iker Tachlis is the Nirtza. We've gotten through the Hallel, and now we're ready for the Geula. And now's not the time to give up. This is the Hemshech HaGeula, the Tachlis of Yetzias Mitzrayim, that we should have the Geula b'mheira b'yomenu. By us, we should have it. The Shulchan Aruch says it's not enough. Even after the Seder, we went from Kodesh to Kodesh HaKadoshim. Shir HaShirim is Kodesh HaKadoshim. And the Yavitz brings down, and the Kitzur brings down, Kaf Chaim brings down the Sminik to say the Shir HaShirim. Shulchan Aruch brings down, not to say Shir HaShirim, he brings down to be Oisik and Halacha, Kol Oisik Alayla, in the Inyanim of Yetzias Mitzrayim, and Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, and Hilchos Yetzias Mitzrayim. Shir HaShirim is a kiyum of that, because there's a lot of mentions Akopanim based on the Rashis, based on Chazal, to Yetzias Mitzrayim in the Shir HaShirim, say it with the Nigin, say it with the Simcha. Rav Shlomo Zalman used to say it, Rav Moshe used to say it, Keidua. Tonight, if a person is going to sleep, he says Hamapil without the Psukei Shmira, which is a tremendous chizik in Emunah. It's a tremendous chizik in the Leil Shimurim. The Mogen Avram says you don't lock the door. The Chag Yankiv says you lock the door if it's Shchiach HaZeika. No, maybe do one lock. It's a Leil Shimurim. And Leil Shimurim has tremendous nafkaminas. We don't say Main Sheva. You're not going to say on Leil Shabbos, even though we always say Main Sheva, but that's because of we need a protection. Tonight we have Leil Shimurim L'Doiroisam. It's a Leil Shimurim. We don't dip salt, says the Ramah. Most people don't dip salt, even though salt is Megan on Paranis. Tonight we don't need to be Megan on Paranis because it's Leil Shimurim. I saw that they bring down a shaila. What happens if somebody put the matzahs under the bed? They want to say Leil Shimurim. No, that's already a very big chiddush. I guess it could be makel anyways, because we don't ask b'diavad things that were under a bed according to many. So maybe a shayvim mitzvah liyedid avera. That's a very big chiddush. Nobody should eat fish and meat tonight because it's Leil Shimurim. But al kapanim, anybody who is able to, he should stay up the whole night, and he should be able to talk in Yitzias Mitzrayim and the Inyanim of Yitzias Mitzrayim. However, don't feel too bad, because the lashon of the Shulchan Aruch is ad shetech tefen sheina. Rav Yasha said tech tefen sheina is if you're not going to be able to daven in the morning and you're dead tired right now, so then that's tech tefen sheina. Tech tefen sheina doesn't mean until you fall asleep. If you fell asleep, I don't need someone to tell me I'm pater. I'm an oinus. It's achetech defendeshena. I'm very drained. I'm very tired after 4 cups of wine. Most of us are at that matziv. And certainly, if in the morning he's not going to be able to say Kriya Shema and davening properly in its man, etc. After the whole recharge of the Yitzias Mitzrayim, tomorrow morning is when we put it into practice and we come to daven the tefillah. Now we saw the whole night that when a yid davens, HaKadosh Baruch Hu answers. Now we saw what it is to be moedet Hashem Yisparach. So in the morning we want to say as a tefillah, as a halil, as a Kriya. So then if his tech defeneshena makes him that he's so tired he won't be able to learn in the morning, he won't be able to daven in the morning, so then he's allowed to go to sleep. At that night, he says, Hamapil, the Rebbeinu Shalom protects us. We saw Rabbi say that the end of the Seder is not the time to pack it in. We got through the Magid. Now's the time when he starts, Rabbi say. He puts it all into practice. He takes the egg. It's mechazikim and emuna that the Rebbeinu Shalom should build the base of mikdash. It gives him a chizik, a desired shuka, that tonight when we'll be sitting in the Tisha B'Av, it'll be a yontif, Bezes Hashem. The crisis, the actual meal, the suda. How much he has to have simcha, the dessert of the afikoimen. What a message that is to children. Tonight, the menu, the Heilige Bashefer makes the menu. He's sitting with his seba. He's making sure not to talk during that seba the one time a year when he might have that halacha of not talking while he eats because he's bent over a little bit. He holds the kois, the benching. He holds a cup because as that benching, as that birchas hamazin, he's thanking the Heilige Bashefer for everything that he has, the halal that he has afterward. A finishing. Now we're there, Rabbi Isai, and we end with the Lashona Ba B'Yushalayim Halavai Velavai, Rabbi Isai, that the next year that I'll be giving to the Aguda will be in Yushalayim Yer HaKodesh. And I have even better news for you. Halavai, I'll be in the audience with you, and we'll be listening to our great Rebbeim giving the shir in Yushalayim Yer HaKodesh B'Meira B'Yameinu Amen.
Okay, the Rav is already there, so you have a huge benefit over us. So we hope to join you, Emir Shem, there, as you said.
If we find out before, so then you'll be in touch with me, Rabbi Gadisman, and we'll make a chabura to get onto the korban. The oilam will eat together, Bez Hashem. I see it's a big oilam. We might need more than one goat.
We all need a pull. We need a zayas. So I don't know. It
might need more than one goat. I see here. That's true. And we're also going to have to have some gitta esters because you're not allowed to break any bone, and therefore you have to eat every part. The Mishnah Pesachim says you have to eat the brain. You got to get somebody who's going to be maskim to eat the brain after. You can't break the bone open. You have to pull through the nose of the goat. You have to have some good gishmak. We need some good eaters. We need some good eaters over here.
Okay, I'm sure you'll be around to help us do that. So how many times do you say L'shana Ba Yerushalayim? There's some.
I say 3.
Yom Kippur to say it only once. You say it 3 times.
Yeah, but it's a murdik zachar by side. Yom Kippur, we only say L'shana Ba Yerushalayim after a 40-day avodah. Over here, 4 or 5 hours, boom. We already say L'shana Ba Yerushalayim. The avodah of Pesach, we can accomplish what we accomplish in 40 days.
Okay, it's a nice thought to leave us with. We will reconvene tonight at 8:30 for some dvarim on the Haggadah of Pesach. 8:30 to 9. We're cutting it down tonight, and tomorrow at 11 o'clock we'll prepare for Rabbi Katz's year on Shiurim on Leila Seder. Again, Yeshkach to the Rav for being.